guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with Film Theory. Tonight, well, hope we're going to dive deep into the Cyberpunk world, because we got Cyberpunk Edgerunners here, called Dark Plot to Hack Your Mind. Oh boy. So, yeah, pretty much anything's digitized in Cyberpunk's world. So, apparently there's a little more to it. So, how about we just hop in and see this dark plot, huh? So be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's go!
This video was sponsored by Dislight. Night City, city of dreams. But under the surface, it's a nightmare. Past the megacorps, the gangs, the crime, there's a conspiracy built to drive you insane. One word of warning, friends. Don't trust everything you see. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that really wants to stay at your house. Today we're talking about an urban cityscape coated in neon and sprinkled with characters oozing so much swag that I know they're too cool to hang out with me. Cyberpunk 2077. Scratch that. Today we're actually talking about two of these worlds because our sponsor for today's video is Dislight, the free turn-based gacha RPG for iOS and Android, all about people awakening divine powers in a super stylish sci-fi setting. Wait a minute, Dislight is set in 2027? That's just 4 years away. Society had better start installing neon lights in a hurry. And it beats Cyberpunk 2077 to this aesthetic by 50 whole years. But it's not just a cool rave aesthetic that connects these worlds. Just like Cyberpunk is all about awakening your powers using augmentation, in Dislight, each of these characters, the Espers, have been able to awaken the dormant powers of mythological figures hidden inside of them to help fight the monsters that are invading Earth. We're talking Thor to Medusa to Odin and Anubis. And you ain't never seen Odin like this, wearing leather, riding on a motorcycle. Where was this in the MCU? The latest additions to the roster are the sisters Athena and Nyx, who are not only adding their sharp sense of fashion to the game. Seriously, does everyone in this game have themselves a cool jacket? But are also bringing their own story of rebellion into this world. Across the game's newest chapter, you'll discover this pair's tragic backstory, how Athena gained Esper powers and basically abandoned Nyx to go be a hero.
I can make the world safer and better. We can... You are leaving?
That then left Nyx to be captured and forced to become one of the world's first artificial Espers, which is kind of an issue when you consider that artificial Espers don't have complete control of themselves. Kind of like the Cyberpsychos that we're going to be meeting today in the world of Cyberpunk. Maybe these two worlds are more connected than I thought. Connected universe theory, perhaps? Neon lights, godlike powers, pumping music, rebelling against corrupted systems and shadowy organizations? Check, 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 and check. Episode for another day, perhaps. TLDR, if you like Cyberpunk, Dislight is going to be your jam. And bonus, in the world of Dislight, the powers that be aren't trying to turn you into a crazy mind-controlled pawn for the government, which segues nicely into Cyberpunk and our theory for today. In case you somehow missed the Keanu Reeves level hype around Cyberpunk, this was a video game that, unlike Dislight, didn't exactly have itself the smoothest launch.
Yeah, the bugs. Whew. See?
Yeah, despite the fantastic writing, art, and gameplay, the greedy corpos at the head of the company definitely pushed this thing out the door a couple years before it was ready. And though the devs certainly kept polishing it over the years, Cyberpunk 2077 looked to go down in history as a cautionary tale against releasing games early. Or at least, that was the case.
I don't think it was Project Red's fault. I'm not too sure. Maybe it was PlayStation. Or at least that's what I remember. Like I said, I don't remember exactly the story. I think CD Projekt Red wanted to push it back a bit more, but you know how these things go. You push it back too many times, eventually the hype's gonna go down. So I think it was Sony or something that forced them to release it? Or maybe I'm thinking No Man's Sky. I don't know. Like I said, I can't say for certain. You know? Anyway, from 2077, let's check out Edgerunners and see how it saved the franchise.
Case until the release of the Netflix anime Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
Another word for cyberpunk.
So then, this is titled Cyberpunk? Weird. Edgerunners is incredible, following the tragic love story of mercenaries David and Lucy as they descend into the underbelly of Night City, a capitalist dystopia run by megacorporations. It is no exaggeration to say that this anime single-handedly saved the brand, with 2077 selling millions of additional copies in its wake. Online discourse has also completely turned around for the franchise, with people who used to clown on the IP instead saying, "You're breathtaking." It's also the reason why we're talking about Cyberpunk on our
it did help
channel
him
because,
make the
wow,
idea.
look at those review scores. To catch you up, Edgerunners follows David Martinez, a teenager forced into the life of a mercenary in Night City. David finds and installs a very dangerous mechanical body modification that speeds up his movement. This so-called cyberware is a big deal, because he definitely shouldn't be able to use this thing.
That there is a military-grade piece.
Yeah,
Gotta have
military
the bit
grade.
to handle it. And Joan, that's something you ain't got.
Despite this, David adapts well to the implant with no training, spending the rest of the series upgrading his body with more and more cyberware. The show's central conflict then eventually becomes David's struggle against the implants, and whether or not his body is gonna reject them all.
I feel better in metal than in my own skin. I'm built different. I just know it.
Why is all of this such a big deal? Well, when someone's body can't handle their cyberware, or they just have too much of it, it literally drives them insane with an affliction known as cyberpsychosis.
Some metal's simply not meant to mix with meat. Your organic body, your soul gets pushed to the edge.
Oh, that's why it's called Edgerunners. Except, I think that there's a problem with cyberpsychosis. It isn't what it appears to be. No, this diagnosis that is central to Edgerunners is actually a method of control, seized by the few at the top to subjugate the many at the bottom. And the craziest part of it all, cyberpsychosis is only a single piece in a much grander conspiracy about controlling the bodies and minds of everyone in this world. Wake up, theorists! We've got ourselves a theory to burn. First things first, let's actually break down what exactly cyberpsychosis is. Cyberpsychosis is an in-universe mental illness which results in a loss of empathy and identity. It supposedly stems from cybernetic implants, and the more cyberware that someone has, the larger their risk of getting cyberpsychosis. People who suffer from it come to view other people as weak and inferior, and they have themselves a total disregard for human life. The further a cyberpsycho declines, the less they care about self-preservation, the more they distance themselves from loved ones, and the worse their violent outbursts get. We see this firsthand in Edgerunners through the character of David's mentor, Maine. He starts off normally kind and generous.
Everybody gets a fair shake. Only way I operate.
But then he starts treating his crew as worthless.
All right, huh, kid?
Most interestingly of all, though, cyberpsychos start identifying with machines more than humans, something that we actually see visually in Edgerunners as David starts hallucinating mechanical parts growing out of the people around him. Basically, if you have cyberpsychosis, you're a dead man walking. But here's the thing. While cyberpsychosis is a serious problem in this world, what we actually see from the series doesn't line up with what we're told about this diagnosis. Firstly, it doesn't really seem to affect everyone equally. Obviously, David's unique in that he has incredible tolerance to cyberware.
Well, your affinity for cyberware is nuts.
But a ton of the characters in Edgerunners have massive parts of their body replaced with no psychotic effects at all. Plus, we have ourselves V, the playable character from Cyberpunk 2077. He can get completely decked out in implants from head to toe, but is never once considered to be in danger of going crazy and becoming a cyberpsycho. But okay, so what if someone does go cyberpsycho? Well, it's not the end-all be-all death sentence that everyone makes it out to be. A full third of Maelstrom, a cultist gang obsessed with cyberware implants, are cyberpsychos, and they're not actively burning Night City down. Some cyberpsychos are even friendly. Meanwhile, every member of MaxTac, the universe's equivalent of a SWAT team, is a cyberpsycho. Literally all of them. As the Shard puts it, quote, the same people who butchered innocents in the streets just a month, a week, a day earlier are now knights in shining armor. There's a ton of evidence to back...
Okay, so here's what's going on here, I think. I think it depends on where you get those parts. Like, think about it. Most people, especially our people down at Edgerunners, they're probably not getting like top of the line or, you know, legitimate products. There's got to be some bootlegs, right? You know, people's always obsessed about the cyber implants because, you know, they got to do what they got to do, correct? So maybe, this is what I'm thinking, but maybe there's a little bug in the system that if you don't get it from the right source or update it in time, it's a virus and boom. Or, as MatPat's saying, maybe it's deliberate. You know, from who? Hard to say. Because again, there's a lot of medical corporations that's probably trying to do it for corporate warfare. But there is one thing that's been thinking. Okay, I'm going to bring up a real world example, but hear me out. So, remember back in Prohibition, like the oversimplified video, how they add toxins to like the stuff that bootleggers would make? What if it's the same here? What if they're adding like this certain element into like their implants, let it get out, so it takes out the gangs? At least that's what I'm thinking. Remember, Dave is only able to do it because I think he said military grade, so it's probably going to be easier to upgrade. But then again, we do see Dave, you know, succumb to cyberpsychosis. So could be? But then again, I'm not sure it's because of the first implant he's getting. Could be the others, because remember, he said he was getting more comfortable in the metal than his own flesh. So that's not good. Anyway.
Call this up. The very first trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 featured a cyber psycho woman being attacked by MaxTac, but she later shows up in a quest from the video game as a member of MaxTac, which references the trailer as a canonical event. They didn't kill her, they recruited her. Furthermore, a computer terminal that you can find in a different quest line describes cyberpsychosis as a, quote, fairly common problem amongst MaxTac. On top of all of that, Atom Smasher, one of the main antagonists of both the anime and the game, has had his body entirely replaced with implants.
Heard you went no-ganic, full bore.
And yet, despite being sadistic, violent, and having a disregard for human life,
I'm the one you're after, ain't I?
All the same meat to me.
he doesn't display any of the insanity that's associated with cyberpsychosis in the series. In short, despite the show telling us that a cyberpsychosis diagnosis is a death sentence, it just isn't. I suspect the problem here isn't the hardware, but rather it's the software.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Up
thinking
with too much cyberware is a gateway to getting cyberpsychosis. It's more about getting something into people's minds rather than their bodies. What makes me say this? Well, take a look at this. Despite David's massive amount of implants in the series, the thing that actually puts him over the edge is the software required to run his biggest, baddest implant.
David, Cyberskeleton's a trap. Don't install the soft.
Additionally, within the 2077 game, one of the quick hack software abilities that you can unlock and use on enemies is called Cyberpsychosis. It does exactly what you think, giving cyberpsychosis to anyone regardless of their amount of cyberware. Now, you might think that this is just a gameplay thing, something that they dismiss as a rule of cool ability that doesn't actually exist in canon, but that isn't the case. The official music video for the ending theme of Edgerunners features the canonical events that lead to the death of a hacker named Sasha. And in it, Sasha uses that same cyberpsychosis ability, meaning that this is a very real piece of software that exists in universe. If cyberpsychosis is something external trying to hack a target's brain, that would explain why so many of the characters that I mentioned earlier with a ton of implants don't struggle with cyberpsychosis. Lucy and Kiwi are master hackers that have taken steps to protect themselves, while wealthy and important characters like Tanaka, Jimmy Kurosaki, and the Arasaka agents have the best protection software that money can buy. When you look at all of the evidence, cyberpsychosis, this thing that is central to the tragedy that is Edgerunners, simply isn't what we're led to believe it is. And the craziest part, it's just a small piece of a much larger puzzle. One that would see everyone under the thumb of some shadowy entity that controls Night City. Cyberpsychosis is the most obvious form of this control, but there's far more subtle forms of manipulation that's happening under the surface. What could lead to that sort of power?
All roads lead to the Megacorps.
Ladies, gentlemen, and punks, it's time to rebel. Very clearly, the Megacorps of Night City are the ones pulling the strings. Literally hacking and controlling people would be the next logical step. But there's a darker agenda here too, and one that's far more frightening. One of the best questlines in the game involves Night City mayoral candidate Jefferson Peralez and his wife Elizabeth, bringing the player on to solve a mystery. Now, this quest chain is long, so forgive me for summarizing a bit, but here's the gist. They hire the player character V to look into a strange incident that happened in their penthouse. Jefferson wakes up one night to find a stranger in their home. He shoots the stranger and then passes out. But when Jefferson regains consciousness the next morning, the intruder's gone and there's no evidence of a break-in. As you do this quest, you discover a cover-up. It turns out that their private security company has been secretly monitoring them from a secret room, using experimental neuroplasticity technology and subliminal messaging to mess with their minds, to literally rewrite the pathways that are in their brains, altering their thoughts, their memories, and their personalities.
What about that? The blue
Fresh neural links. They're not spying on them, Johnny. They're with their heads.
And we're not just talking about simple stuff like favorite movies or taste in music.
Once, I said we should visit his brother's grave, and he told me that he'd been an only child.
At the end of the storyline, we can either tell Jefferson the truth or lie to protect his safety. Either way, the manipulation continues. Jefferson goes on to win the election, thereby putting a puppet in control of Night City. Now, obviously, this is going way deeper than just some small-time security company. Another quest in the game involves V recovering a stolen encrypted hard drive which contains an internal memo from one of the Megacorps, Night Corp, detailing secret experiments that they're running on unsuspecting subjects. They've managed to use subliminal messaging to turn one subject described as calm and empathetic into a psychopath that, quote, strangled one of their colleagues over a dispute over
the 16th
coffee.
floor
Can't really blame them. I don't like decaf either. But think about this. Night Corp was able to remotely turn people into rage-filled murderers. Sounds a lot like what we've discussed with cyberpsychosis, doesn't it? And all while using subliminal messaging to rewrite their brains. Night Corp is brainwashing people, turning good people into psychopaths and politicians into puppets, all as part of a grander scheme. And here's the cherry on top. The thing that takes this from a fun little plotline hidden under the surface to a full-blown conspiracy conspiracy about the people at the top of the corporate ladder. You see, loyal theorists, there aren't people at the top of the corporate ladder. It's an evil artificial intelligence that's somehow gotten out of control. Now, I realize that that's a pretty big claim, even for this series. While powerful AI do exist in the world of Cyberpunk, and we even meet one in 2077, what's the evidence that they're controlling everything here? Well, first of all, we know that these sorts of AI can and potentially do run organizations. The head of Arasaka has his mind digitized during 2077, turning himself into an AI that can continue to run the company. Other characters like the Maelstrom and Voodoo Boys gang worship tech, and they see the takeover of the world by AI as an inevitability. And that secret program described in the encrypted Night Corp memo, it was outright called an AI. We also know that AI aren't complacent to live in cages. Pretty much every AI we meet throughout Cyberpunk 2077 either wants to be free or take control. It's only a matter of time before this AI at Night Corp takes over the company, and wouldn't it be handy if it had itself some mind-controlling tech for that? AI being responsible for this whole conspiracy, both the brainwashing and the cyberpsychosis, would also explain why gangs obsessed with tech and implants like Maelstrom are so involved in this thing, and why one of the major symptoms of cyberpsychosis is beginning to identify with machines more than man. It's the AI conditioning all us fleshy meat sacks for their inevitable takeover. On all fronts, this AI is controlling people, whether it be through cyberpsychosis, brainwashing, or just good old-fashioned hacking. And I suspect we've already seen this AI in action. In this game, there's a mysterious character that we only see twice named Mr. Blue Eyes. He's seen at the end of the Jefferson questline that we talked about earlier, as well as during one of the game's endings, hiring our player character. We also hear that he and his people might just be replacing dissidents in the city.
I warned him! Some black suits came by, blue eyes and all. Look just like he said.
Clearly, whoever this guy is, he's powerful, pulling unknown strings that we only catch a glimpse of. But here's why it matters. In the Cyberpunk universe, people's eyes start glowing blue or orange when they're transferring information digitally, or when they're being remotely puppeteered by someone. Or something. So, someone who has glowing blue eyes all the time, enough so that their alias is Mr. Blue Eyes, that means that they're constantly transferring data, constantly being puppeteered. This guy is the literal embodiment of this massive conspiracy, a story that's touched every part of the Cyberpunk IP from Edgerunners to 2077, and I bet that we're going to be seeing a lot more from him in the future. But hey, once again, I'd like to thank the sponsor for today.
That is scary. Oof. That is nuts. And to think, all over an AI wanted to just, I don't know, sorry. Yeesh. I mean, if this doesn't prove that AI is kind of a bad idea, oh boy. I'm just saying, there's sometimes good AIs, but I guess it depends how you treat them, you know? And again, we've seen good AIs, just people just get scared of them, you know? 4AIs, natural, not fully blue eyes. I'm still good. Anyway, until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think of the theory. Do you think an AI is actually behind all this? Who knows? Till next time, see ya.